Hey, Dan Meyer here, and today I'm going to talk to you about 5 keys to communicating online. Basically, these are things that you should be doing if your primary communication, as most of us are right now, is online. Whether you're sending emails or recording videos or writing a blog or whatever you may be doing, you want to kind of follow these rules as you're trying to build engagement. They're pretty standard stuff, common sense for the most part, but it's important to talk about them. And most importantly, if you're working with a virtual staff, if you have a VA you're working with, or if you are a VA working with a client, you want to make sure you discuss these things, right? Make sure there's no disagreement or no space between you and the person you're working with, so that you kind of speak in the same voice. It's really, really important that if you're going to make most of your marketing online, which most of us have to do today in this current environment we're in, where everything is pretty much being done online for business, you have to make sure that you're on the same page with things like netiquette. What is netiquette? How should you follow it? That's number one. Number two is conveying the right tone, making sure that you're getting the right tone across. We've all had many experiences where we send somebody a joke, or we're being sarcastic, or we're trying to make a silly point via text or even via email, and it comes across wrong. So making sure that you think about your tone is number two. Number three is provide thorough responses. Think through you're going to reply. Think before you send. Right before you hit that submit button, make sure you proofread it. You do a grammar check, you do a spell check, but most importantly, make sure it's well thought out. It makes sense. The last thing you want to do is confuse somebody and make them have to reply back, or maybe they just ignore your message because it doesn't make any sense to them. Number four is build trust, right? Through all these things you're doing, you're trying to build trust. It's the kind of thing where we can do really easily when you're standing in front of somebody and you're looking eye to eye and you shake hands, or you're sitting there and you're working together side by side. You build trust much quicker that way. When you're online, the trust has to come in other ways. You have to think of things you can do to generate trust. And it's actually more of an active thought process versus a lot of times when we're building trust in person, it's very, very passive. We don't think about it, it just happens. But when we're online trying to build trust, it's something that we have to take action on. And the fifth thing is make sure you stay connected, right? Communication only works if it's consistent. If it's something where there's established parameters, where you have expectations of each other so that you know how, when, why, and where you're going to communicate with each other. These are important things. So I'll cover each one in a little more detail, but those are the 5 things that are important to me. Those are the 5 things that when I think about communicating have allowed me to build my business. So I went from being a solopreneur, working by myself, to having a team of 6 people, and within a year and a half, 100 people, all working virtually, all home-based employees, providing services for clients all around the world. And the idea is that if we wouldn't have followed these 5 tips, if these communication skills weren't embedded in our team, if I wasn't hiring for people that had these skills or teaching people how to optimize these skills, I wouldn't be successful. So you really have to think about how do you do these things in your business and how do you help them grow. It's one of the systems you need to have in place to be able to scale a business. It's a system of communication. Most of us think about communications very informally. We don't think about with a lot of structure. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is, whether you are a business owner, entrepreneur, a manager, a virtual staff, a virtual assistant, think about how you communicate and put structure to it. You need to do that to make sure your system scales. So when you follow netiquette, what is good netiquette to you? What are the kind of things that are important for your brand, for your message? What do you want to make sure you do so that people don't misunderstand you, that they don't understand what you want them to be able to do, how you can make them familiar, making sure that you're using people's name correctly? Everyone hates getting an email that's got someone else's name, because as soon as they see that, if an email comes to me and it says, "Hey, David Meyer," then obviously it's probably a canned message someone's sending out to a mass audience. So I lose all interest in the value of that message. Making sure that I understand people are, making sure where they're at when I greet them, right? If I'm sending messages to people in Europe and it's nighttime in the US, I don't want to say good evening. I want to probably say good morning, because they're probably not going to get it until the next morning. Or vice versa, if they're in Asia, I want to take it into fact that they're 12 hours ahead of me, right? So understanding these things is like good manners, right? Manners that you would have in an office space. You want to have them on netiquette as well. And there's a saying that I think is pretty awesome that really sums this up. Google before you tweet is the new think before you speak. Right? So before you tweet something or send something out, make sure you understand the context of what you're trying to do and who you're trying to do it with. Making sure you convey the right tone. They say that 10% of conflict is due to a difference of opinion, but 90% is due to what's wrong with the tone. right? So if your conflict is being generated by difference of opinion, that's going to happen. People are just going to disagree sometimes, and they won't even be able to agree to disagree because they have strong disagreements. But most of the time we have confusion or conflict online. It's because we use the wrong tone, because someone misunderstood us, right? So we want to be clear and proofread our messages and what we're doing to make sure that we're conveying the right tone. We don't want people to misunderstand what we're trying to communicate. You want to make sure you provide thorough responses, right? Ask easy questions that can be answered simply. Don't have run-on questions. Don't put a full paragraph in front of a question. Don't over-explain. Keep it simple. If you have to follow up with more information, you can, but you want to make sure you minimize the things you do that could overwhelm somebody. They say that thorough preparation is something that will allow you to make your own luck. And I believe in that, because thorough preparation means that you really are maximizing opportunity. You're thinking about everything that could possibly happen, and you're being ready for it. You're being prepared. This is what's really important if you're communicating online. Provide thorough responses that show that you're prepared to handle anything that comes your way. And then when you want to build trust, they say he who does not trust enough will not be trusted, right? So what that means is if you're not doing things to build trust, people won't trust you. So again, what you're sharing online, the way you're sharing things, if you're trying to build a trust between you and your brand, but you're mixing your brand with personal stuff, and your personal stuff is not good for building trust, then you're going to be in trouble. You also want to think about the things that build trust in your brand. Most of you know I worked for Wells Fargo for 15 years, right? Wells Fargo built up a brand of trust around the stagecoach, around transporting gold from the gold rush back east to the banks, about protecting money, about protecting people's money. And for a long time, Wells Fargo got really far on that brand of trust. And when they started losing that trust, when they had a couple scandals, things just blew up on them. And they've gone from being really, really powerful and influential to kind of being a bit not so successful, and they've struggled to some extent. To me, it's a great example of trust. And you can look at any company that implodes or has trust issues. You're going to be able to figure out where they went wrong with communicating what was important to them, to their customers and their employees. So think about how you're building trust, right? If you can't build trust, people won't trust you. The last thing, number 5, is stay connected, right? And I think of that line in Ferris Bueller, for those of you that know Ferris Bueller. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it, right? So the idea there is that you have to stay connected. It's a 24/7 online world. And as much as possible, we should figure out how we stay connected. That doesn't mean you yourself should be online 24/7. In fact, you should pick and choose when you are online, when you do want to do social media engagement, when you do want to be around for your customers. But your business should be 24/7. You should have somebody in your business taking care of your business all the time, replying to everything as it comes in, providing 24/7 customer experience. If you don't, if people come to your site or come to your Facebook page or want something from you and they don't get an immediate reply, they're going to go look for somewhere else, right? So you want to make sure that you're staying connected. And when it comes to managing a staff, a virtual staff, managing employees that are spread out around the country or even the world, you want to make sure that you're staying connected. You have meeting times. They know when you're going to be online so they can get a hold of you. They know what to expect as far as turnaround times. They know exactly how you're going to reply to certain things. You build this connection by staying connected. It's super important, right? You want to remember how to do this. And the best way to do this is schedule it. Right? So build a good schedule. Have a great project management tool like Asana or Trello. Build in tasks. Build communication through that. Have your staff make sure they check in with you and give you updates on your timeline. If you're a virtual assistant, make sure you're providing reports, providing feedback, showing progress, letting your clients know that you're on top of things. If you can do this, then you're going to be massively successful. And if you're not going to be successful, if you're going to fail, it's probably because you weren't connected enough. So those are the 5 things you want to do, the 5 keys, right? And if you want to do those things in your business and you need help to scale, if you can't be doing 24/7, if you have trouble staying in one voice, if you're inconsistent with your ability to reply to people and keep people centered because you're doing too many things, because you're busy, then that's the right time to be able to find a virtual assistant. I always say that focus on what you do best and hire for all the rest. That's really the motto of Sonic VA. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can get a virtual assistant, go to sonicva.com. It's sonicva.com, VA being virtual assistant. Or you can text the word data, DATA, to 26786. get a hold of us and we're going to be able to show you how to get started with a virtual assistant to build your business, to start you moving towards that 24/7 approach. If you're able to do that, you're going to build systems that are going to allow you to be successful. This is how I did it. This is how I do it for my clients. And we're all thriving in this current time because we're able to stay on top of things because we know above all else how to communicate effectively online. I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments or reach out to us on social media. And I hope you all have a great day.